myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say to...
Well, hopefully we're back. I've got no idea what happened there. Fingers crossed you are back with NUFC Matters on a Friday. Just give us a yes or a no in the chat if we are back. But yeah, I can see I'm watching the link now to YouTube. It looks like we're back, but got no idea what on earth went on there. Joe hopefully will join us as well. The link has been sent out to him. While we are waiting for Joe, as always, we've got plenty to get our teeth into, and we do like to have our regular slots. So here's the day I met. The day I met, where we ask you to send in photographs of you with ex-Newcastle players, current Newcastle players, managers, whatever. I picked this one out because Doug is a good friend of mine, and I love this tweet that he put out this week. 30 years ago to the day, I persuaded my bloody gorgeous, understanding wife to take our 5-week-old firstborn on the 300-mile round trip to watch Newcastle United Football Club. Well, not only did we win 5-0, but I also got to meet the king. Hail King Kev. How are the lads? And I just loved the photos that Doug posted. There's him in the Ben at the old reception. And there's the Ben at the match.
Brilliant. Fantastic.
Mint.
A shot of the old scoreboard. And he's cheering there, you can see.
Yeah, Wellbar House in the background.
And then, what a way to finish the day. Sir John Hall and KK.
The official baptism, that.
The official baptism. Absolutely brilliant stuff. Great stuff. Thanks for sharing that. Anyone's got any photographs of you with ex-players or current players, managers, whatever, then get them in and we will feature them on the day I met. Dave says it's YouTube trying to tell you something, Steve. Definitely.
Just going back to Doug's photo there, that was when that photo was taken. I think that was the 5-0 Bristol City game, and my wife was actually in hospital, and we were waiting for our baby to be born, and my wife was sharing a room with David Kelly's wife. And I think I've told the story before, but when we came out of Princess Mary he was on the way at the match and I was on the way to visit him. And he told us Newcastle were going to win 5-0. And he goes, put your money on 5-0, Steve. Put your money on 5-0. So when I came, I got to the bookies next to the Three Bulls where we used to drink. And the lads were already gone. So I went in and I put £2 on at 5-0 and it was 50-1. And sure enough, it came in 5-0. So when I went back to the hospital, David said to us, he said, did you put your money on? I went, yeah. I put £2 on. I said, getting £100. And he went, oh, that's brilliant. He goes, that's £100 for when the Ben's born next week. And I went, no, I'm going to use it to buy a half-season ticket. They've just gone on sale. So that's how I got my season ticket in the middle of the season in 1992, and the Ben was born, which would have been I think it's Monday. Her birthday, she's 30 on Monday. So as soon as he said 5-0, I went, that was it, Bristol City 5-0. He said Quinny put I know he said Quinny put £100 on or something. So he did really, really well. And I shouldn't be saying that. It's 30 years ago. Players were allowed to bet then on matches, weren't they? I'm not dropping Mickey in the clots there, I hope. But great memories for him taking the Ben to that match. Absolutely superb.
Yeah, fantastic. Welcome back, Joe. No idea what was going on there. I think any talk about Americans is obviously not allowed when you're working on an American channel such as YouTube. Jersey Mag says, did you see the Saudis setting up LIV football, similar to LIV golf, to rival the American cartel of golf and proposed ESL, Mitch? Could they fund a World Football League with Saudi billions?
Very curious position we are in with Saudi ownership, because as sure as eggs is eggs, the US would want Saudi money involved in the Super League. So how does our club respond to that? We've already seen Bowley having a man there in Maydad at Stamford Bridge this season. There's a little bit of schmoozing already happening, I think. And also the other big shift, as I say and said before, let's see where PSG and Qatar stand after they've got rid of that World Cup. Because I bet that'll be a big shift in opinion about what they might want or not want to do with the money. And I can guarantee from Man City's point of view, whatever Saudi do, they will do. And so you could almost see which way is it going to go? Is it going to be the Gulf money versus American money? Or is everybody going to work out a little entente between themselves and everybody will move forward into the brave new big money world of European football, worldwide football, whatever they want to dress it up as, with more Americanized influence, bearing in mind the big melting pot that you have here in the Gulf region of people from all over the world with interests in different sports. But a lot of the sports that are popular here in the Gulf, aside from football, are Americanized sports. And so they're understood well here in the Gulf. And I think this is the almost political game that's going to be played, is which way are the Gulf states money going to go if there's enough US leverage in the league to start to talk about let's change everything. And I can't see it being confrontational.
No.
Everybody will want to make money out of it. And the simple way to do it is that everybody plays the same game.
Yeah, it's interesting as well, Rich, that Chelsea, one of Bowley's plans is that he wants to follow the Man City model. And he's talking about clubs dotted around the world and that type of thing. And to throw a little bit more chaff into it, I think it was only a fortnight ago that Clearwater increased their stake in the holding company that owns Manchester City. So the whole Manchester City franchise, I think Clearwater, the US company, now own 10% of the bigger picture, which is the Manchester City with all those football clubs in Australia and India and wherever, all wrapped up. So you can see an American influence in Man City coming from a slightly different direction, and it's going into the holding owners rather than in the specific Manchester City Football Club. So City are still operating on their own, but you've got New York, and you've got the club in Australia, and you've got clubs in India and the Far East. And this is a more subtle way of bringing the American influence in. And whether or not Chelsea go down that model, we'll wait to see. But I think that does look like the direction they're going to go, because he certainly has said that he admires the way Manchester City have their setup. And he sees the advantage of a global company and a global worldwide sporting network. What happens then? What we're not seeing is we're not seeing players moving between Manchester City and New York and such like, because the level of quality just isn't there yet. They might go from City to New York, but they're certainly not coming from New York to City. Frank Lampard, I suppose, being the exception of the rule when he left Chelsea and went there and then went to America and came back. But that's the nature of probably a 20-year plan, I would have said. If a company looking way into the future and an organisation and a setup And let's face it, 20 years isn't long in football. It's only 30 years since the Premier League started. It seems like a lifetime ago. Football's moved so much in that 30 years since the Premier League started. What's another 20 years? And in terms of business, 20 years is nothing. Absolutely nothing. That's the sort of global plans and expansive plans that companies put into place. Where will we be in 20 years' time on the global stage? Where will football be? What are we trying to grow? And what benefits can we get as a corporation? And let's face it, football clubs are going to become corporations.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's something which will, no doubt be brought up, time and time again on here. We'll see lots of things happening. João Pedro has signed a new deal, Mitch, at Watford. Is this them trying to, maybe get a bigger price out of us in January, do you think?
Yeah, it screams of asset protection. It's the kind of thing that Ashley used to do with players, isn't it? You almost guarantee when Ashley had a player put onto a new 5-year contract, they'd be gone within 18 months. So, yeah, it could well be. There was more interest than just us in him as well. So, what they're probably hoping for is a bid more in January and they walk away with a better deal.
Yeah, Steve, it looks likely, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And not in that, A, they're protecting an asset, but B, they're protecting the football club because they're thinking, the Championship is, as we know, probably the most competitive league and one of the most difficult leagues to win. And if they don't get promoted this season and with what's potentially happening with parachute payments and changes being made financially, that he becomes their parachute payment. If the whole financial system changes in the next season and they don't get back into the Premier League, there's their saleable asset, and they've got him on a long-term contract, and that means that his value is higher when it comes to somebody because they're going to have to bid more. We covered this slightly when we're talking about Elliot Anderson's contract and about the way that clubs play around and they give contracts. In the case of Elliot Anderson, you are giving him a contract because you see him as a long-term prospect at your football club, and you want to protect that asset that way. And we talked also on Wednesday night about the Jermaine Pennant situation that he had at Notts County, where Notts County played him. The next week, they gave him a contract. Sam Allardyce played him, and by the following Wednesday, they sold him. And they did that. They gave him the contract because they knew if he walked to Arsenal and he left the club, he wasn't worth as much if they went to compensation. So they gave him a contract, played him a game, and then they would be able to go, you know what? He's played in the Premier League, or he's played in the Championship, or whatever. He is an asset to us. So his value. What Arsenal did when they heard that, because Arsenal were going to nab him anyway. Arsenal went, he could go someone else on a free. He could walk. So we'll make a ridiculous bid from now. And I think they ended up giving Notts County something like £5 million for him, which at the time was an awful lot of money. Yes, he went on. He had a decent career. I think he went to Arsenal with a tag on, so at least they knew where he was. But that's probably not a story.
Yeah, I mean, it does. You were nodding your head there, Joe. It does look as if this is, them trying to get him. He signed until 2028. On a longer contract. Should there still be an interest?
It's it just smacks of modern football and modern agencies, doesn't it? We started the show. We started part one talking about money, and here we are now talking about a lad at Watford who very obviously, I'm guessing, unless he's got long-term aspirations to stay there till 2028, that may be the case. If he's as good as people say he is, I highly doubt it. I'd like to see the details of it. Is it got one of those kind of release clauses kind of written into it that if Newcastle or anybody else want him in January, now you have to pay 45 million for him or whatever. Will we go back for him? Is this news that actually affects us? We were allegedly looking at him. He is a Watford player. He'll now remain a Watford player till 2028. Or do we move on? Do we go back if we were really that close to signing him, and how really, really wants him? We might just have to end up paying for him now. So I'll keep half an eye out on him just to see kind of how he goes and what he looks like with his mates, because I know they've sold a couple of players, haven't they now? So it'll be interesting to see what kind of the lad can do on his own. But yeah, it is, Watford need football. Like you say, if they don't come up this year, the parachute payments start to dry up. They'll change the manager 16 times before then, like they normally do. So yeah, we'll see.
Please give the show a bit of a share, folks, because a lot of people probably won't be aware that we're back. They'll still be trying to refresh part one. So if you do know somebody who tends to watch the show, let them know. The reason I'm trying to multitask here, I'm trying to share it to all the usual pages, but proving to be a bit of a nightmare. We've got 224 on now, so at least that's 2/3 of the people who were watching before who are back. But if you can share it, please do. Brazilian media reported Bruno has an injury issue and could be set to miss Friday's match against Ghana after training on Tuesday. Bruno complained of pain and tightness in his left thigh. Combine that with Isaac, Mitch, bit of a nightmare, isn't it? We seem to be hitting a few injuries now.
It isn't. As long as I listen games for the country and they come back and we can get them fit for us, I don't give a monkeys. And we've got time. And we know Bruno went there on the back of a knock. Is it the same knock or is it something different? And again, this comes back to my frustration with injury reporting within football. A thigh problem. So is it a thigh strain? Is it a thigh bruise? If it is a thigh strain, is it grade 1, grade 2, grade 3? These are all very different injuries with very different recovery times and very different potential outcomes. And if they're talking about being ready for the bench on Friday, or ready for the bench for the second game if he misses the first game, then the likelihood is it's probably just a bruise and it's precautionary. And that means there's a country there looking after our player for once. Same with Isaac withdrawn from the Swedish squad. I would very much say that's probably precautionary. He's probably not that badly injured, and so we need but because there's no obligation to report injuries in the same way. This is one thing we would learn from American sports. However, the driver for all of that injury reporting is better, and the way they bet in American sports and the way they bet in the NFL in particular, that people want to know what the injury status of somebody is, because somebody somewhere might have an over-under bet on yardage for that week on a certain play. Somebody somewhere might have a DFS selection for that week where losing a player to injury is going to kill your bet. Somebody somewhere is playing in a fantasy American football league for cold hard cash, not for japes the way I do. And again, whether you win or lose that game that week might hinge on the fact that you're hanging your hat on Leonard Fournette with a dodgy right hamstring, and in the second play, the Tampa Bay game, he pulls his hamstring and he's out for 4 weeks. And so all of these things revolve. That's what the driver is in American sport, but it also means as fans in the NFL, for example, you're far better aware of what kind of injury you're dealing with a player. Whereas we go, his hamstring's a bit tight. Well, what the hell does that mean? That's not a medical diagnosis of any form at all. You know, and so it's difficult to gauge. I think I've seen a little bit of panic within the fan base about it all. I remind everybody we've got a little break at the minute, and as long as they come back fit for us, and they're not doing silly 10 minutes here and there for the country, which could put them at risk, and the countries are actually looking after our players, I'm all for that. You know, and I think that's what we need to just try and keep a cool head about at the minute. We've got time, we need the injuries assessed, and it sounds like the countries are at least looking after our players by not risking them. And I think that's maybe it's a glass half full answer. Whereas I can understand why some people are going into a little bit of a panic and looking at the glass half empty.
Steve, I think the other thing as well is Botman pulling out of his international call-up because he wants to concentrate on Newcastle. Yeah,
I think the Botman situation, he was under 21s, wasn't it? And I think he sees himself as no longer an under 21 player, quite possibly, and thinks he should be in the full squad. But you've got a strange manager in the Dutch squad at the minute. I've just been reading about what he's done with Tim Krul. Doesn't select him and then says, "But I want you to come along for penalty training to teach everybody else how to save a penalty." You know, and Botman's probably sitting there going, "You know what? I want to protect me be position at Newcastle. He's fighting for a place in the Premier League at the minute anyway, isn't he? In our team. He's in 1 week, he's out the other, because the manager is selecting horses for courses as far as his centre-backs are concerned. And he's keeping everybody happy as well, by the way. But he'll only be able to do that for a certain length of time. But yeah, I'm one of these people that... For me, it's Newcastle United first. It's internationals second, and I'm not one that goes, "Oh, great, we've got an England player in the England team, a Newcastle player in the England team." For me, it's like when you play for England, that's your reward, and that's for you. That's for the player. I don't see it as being for the supporters or anything like that. So I'm not that bothered whether England had one Newcastle player, no Newcastle players, or 10 Newcastle players. I'm concentrating on having Newcastle players fit to play for Newcastle United. That's my number one priority. So when players don't get selected, I'm not that bothered, In fact, I'm quite happy, because I feel as though it means that they're going to be fresh and they're going to be fit, and they're not travelling and they're not, risking injury and this type of thing. And I can understand exactly what Botman's doing. When I'm on, can I just say a big thanks to Mickey Quinn on Twitter. He's just posted on Twitter saying that he met me on the bus on the way home. He was actually driving the 308 and shouted down the aisle, "Hey, is that you? Are you one of the three amigos?" I went, "Yes, I am." And then proceeded to tell everybody on the bus that he's been sending pictures of me looking like Pat Butcher. So thanks for that, Mickey. He's outed himself, but that was really good. And he was a good lad. We had a good chat there when we got off the bus. So thanks for getting us home in time for to do the show, mate.
Fantastic, great stuff. Mozza says our weekend was nearly ruined with the show going off. But anyway, we are back. Nobody knows what went on. I will no doubt get some kind of outage apology from StreamYard. Certainly seems as if YouTube was fine. It was probably the StreamYard side of things. Scott mentioning the fact that we've resigned one of our sponsors. Now, I'm not sure which one it was, Mitch, but yeah, I mean, the commercial.
Was it not the tyres? Tomcat tyres, yeah.
I had it saved because somebody mentioned it earlier, but obviously with us having to reset the program, I've missed it. But yeah, it was the tyre company. But yeah, I mean, we are going to see some people having a continuous association. But somebody did ask the question again. I've got no idea who it was, but should we be concerned that we haven't got a big name sponsoring yet? No, because that will all happen. Time. That will all happen. It will all happen, Mitch, won't it?
One step at a time, and every penny that comes in is useful. And we don't know the details of the deal. Are they paying double what they were paying? Or we're now a more attractive proposition for a company like that to hang their name on our shirt or around the advertising holders or whatever official capacity. If you look at some of the sponsorships somebody like Man U have, they've got an official tyre partner, an official tractor partner, all these weird and wonderful partnerships. We can do that too. So one step at a time, and interesting that these kind of things are now coming together. Now Darren Eales is in place. And again, someone we forgot to mention when it comes to attachment to American sport and attachment to the USA. And so again, we're looking at that as another connection where we can talk about that. But certainly in terms of commercial deals, there's bigger deals in the pipeline, one step at a time, and every penny counts. And it wouldn't be beyond me to have an official razor partner, an official title partner, or whatever else you want to pluck out of mid-air that you can go and buy as Newcastle United's official supplier of black bullets or whatever. It could be anything and everything. But all of those deals add up. That's how it works. It's not just the big hit deals. It's the volume of other side deals that you can generate that persuades a company that we are a brand that is now one that is acceptable to be associated with. Because again, one of the other things that Mike Ashley's reign at Newcastle United did is it turned Newcastle United into a toxic brand. People did not want to be associated with Newcastle United. And now everybody's up my tailpipe like a bloody rat up a drain pipe, because we now seem to be the hot property about this is a brand we want to be associated with. So we should take our time to milk as much as we can from every area, and every little goes towards those FFP calculations, and the big things will come in time.
Yeah, and that's the way it will be, Steve. We do need to have a little patience, as Muzza's saying, but like the tape that stone.
Yeah, well, I was going to say Guns N' Roses, but fair enough. Yeah, I mean, one of the things I think behind the scenes, we know that they're also Newcastle United. They didn't have a commercial department as such. I had one man and a dog, and that was about it. Everything was run on a shoestring. But Newcastle are building that commercial department. They're looking at, they're getting top commercial executives coming into the club. So as well as building around Darren Eales and what he's got from America, and his prowess in sport, they're also the prowess of the commercial department. And he's outlook. They've also done exactly the same with our legal team. And all this knits together. They're bringing in legal executives, building their legal team, building their executives up, building Darren Neal's position, supporting the sporting director in Dan Ashworth. And this is all part of the growth. And we will see commercial deals, but we're in certain commercial deals that now have to be unpicked as well, because there's certain commercial deals that be in place that perhaps don't fit with the club anymore going forward, whether that's the leisure wear and such like, whether it's the club shop and what goes on in there. There's deals there that possibly have to be unpicked. There's sponsorship deals that may not suit them because they may be wanting to go for others. So there's an awful lot going on in the background, but it's being done quietly and sensibly. And I think that's the key. Manchester United, Mitch, you were saying, 57, 58 different sponsors, from tractors to tyres to God knows what. It's interesting, Manchester United also lost £2 million a week in that current accounts, 110 million pound. It worked out at like 2.2 million pound a week that they've lost over the last financial year. Now, so you can have as many commercial partners as you like, but you've also got to do it right. There's no good throwing good money out the bad. I think they spent £24 million on getting rid of 2 managers in 6 months as well. These are all the mistakes, and this is where the commercial department, and more importantly, the legal department suddenly start to make their money. And that's why you've got to have good legal people, because you've got to make sure all your contracts are good. All your contracts are good to support the football club, not to support other people, and not to get yourself tangled up. I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Castore. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Fun 88. The Castore one's the one that fascinates me the most, for various reasons, which I'm sure will come out of the woodwork in the weeks and months to come. But it's interesting times to be a Newcastle fan. It always is. But I think what we've got to see is gently taking it step by step, and we're getting people in who know what they're doing.
Well, and we're not doing things like what this curious situation at Man City with the betting partner, who seems to be a non-existent company, and all the pages seem to be ran from the UAE.
What a surprise!
And interestingly, the company they've compared that site to is ours, Fun 88.
Yep.
And they've looked at the traffic across the Chinese and the Vietnamese and the Cambodian and Malaysian sites for those companies, and it doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. And so we want the right commercial deals in place, but also there's no way we're going to be taking a piss like that, because if that's found to be true, Man City are in deep hot.
Yeah, and a lot of these betting companies are run out of the Isle of Man, and a lot of them are just duplicated betting companies as well. When you look at the history, we looked at, if you remember, before the takeover, and we saw an awful lot of symmetry within what was happening in various guises, with sponsors, with names, people that were linked to 2 and 3 and 4 different companies, all running out of the same shell office in the Isle of Man or wherever. So yeah, it is a murky world, and that's why, as I say, we've got to have not just the commercial people, but we've got to have very, very good legal people in place to make sure that the commercial deals fit and suit what the club is trying to achieve, and that's protecting the club as much as anything else. making sure that the deals are watertight, they're with the right people, but also that if a deal is wrong for the football club that you've already signed, that you can get out of that deal very, very quickly and with the minimum amount of damage. And I think Man City probably been caught up in something. And as you say, if it's proved to be right, it could have serious ramifications going forward. And I think that Manchester City will not be the only club. There'll be a few looking over their shoulders now, especially with this NFT commotion that's going on in Europe now with this so-called great way of taking money out of fans. Buy this, it's an NFT, it's going to go up in value. And then as soon as everybody buys the thing, it's worth like threatens. It should have been promising you it's going to be worth 30,000 quid or whatever, this is the nature of where sport is going, and the way that everybody's desperate for cash and everybody's paying in because they all want to be better than everybody else, and it's a dangerous tightrope rope to walk. But as I say, we're getting the right people in place to make sure that we're covered. I was going to say covered every basis, and then I thought, shit, that's another Americanism that's brought in.
John, thanks for the tenner, mate. I'll stick that in the Christmas pot for the lads for copious amounts of red wine that we tend to drink.
Steve, it's interesting though, isn't it, listening to the lads? Because I think the expectation was that Aramco or the Saudi airline or something had been, we'd have renamed the stadium, we'd have it plastered all over our shirts. They'd give us 10 billion a year and happy days, but yet again it goes back down to lining all your ducks up in order, because we can have all the money you want in the bank. They can sponsor us till the cows come home. But good businesses don't. Fun ain't doing a job, and they're putting money in at the minute, so we'd have to buy them out. So that's more money we haven't got to spend. But actually, even if we had all this sponsorship money, at this minute in time, one, we still don't know where we're at with the financial fair play. And we're still not in a position to entice Kylian Mbappe to St. James's Park. So I think in terms of doing it correctly and doing it properly, Mitch hit the nail on the head. It's going to come. We will, I'm certain Aramco will be at St. James's Park. I have no doubt about it. The new airline, will go on the shirts, but hopefully by then, we'll continue to build on the pitch. We'll climb up the league a little bit, and then better players will follow. And actually, that's when we'll need the money. At the moment, we need to sign Matt Targett because we need Matt Targett. In the future, we can sign Roberto Carlos because we'll need him.
Brilliant stuff. I love the fact you always just chuck in these names casually, Joe. One day we will get one of those big ones, mate. You're right, though. You are right.
Stop mentioning Paul Pogba, I noticed, because he knows that Paul Pogba has to bring his brother with him, and the nightmare that would bring.
Okay, it's time for Tweet of the Week. Tweet of the week. Thanks to everybody who sent these in. Callum Wilson seeing Alexander Isak arrive at the Newcastle physio room from Odds Bible. Is it your first time? This one from Stephen Kennedy. Never underestimate the power of a Nuki brown fart. Definitely a ripper. And this one from Jimmy Moore. Tweet of the week, he says, I'm going to have to see proof of authenticity. A Holy Bible, a signed copy. And the shock on these faces. Rumour going around that Steve Bruce is giving up bacon sarnies and doner kebabs. And this one caused a very interesting debate, didn't it, Steve, on social media this week? In the 80s, this was our Netflix. There was a proper video loving this week.
Hey, it was. It went crazy, didn't it? When people sending us messages saying, I love this. That was brilliant. But it's true, isn't it? That's what we had.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things. Memories, always seem fonder, don't they? But I mean, there was a lot of frustrating things. I remember wiping stuff and losing stuff, tapes getting tangled. Oh, dear me, it's a nightmare.
The tab off and then sticking it back on again.
Exactly. I see Jodie Dennis has been snapped up by CBeebies along with Sooty and Richard Keys to star in an all-new Sooty and Creep show, says Ian. Yes, there was something particularly creepy about that. I do agree. Julie, I was over the moon to see you. Fantastic birthday, and there is a great photo, Mitch. If ever I've seen one, a real legend, and Peter Beardsley.
Exactly.
I'll be back with George tomorrow, 11 o'clock. Tune in for the latest. Those were the days. Always enjoy doing those shows. Aaron, thank you for this. Didn't realise we'd signed Cancelo. Very good. Yeah, excellent. Great stuff. This one, two fish in a tank. One says to the other, you drive, I'll man the guns.
Oh, hey.
Don't encourage him. Don't encourage him.
I love that one, Ian. Thanks, mate. Grown man, by the way. That's honestly embarrassing. Imagine getting Stan Collymore on the back of your jersey. Yes, I'm sure you've all seen the other shirt there. I can take that off now. It was a happy birthday to Liam Gallagher this week. On God for Life. And this one was a video. You'll have to go and see the video on Ben Jacobs' page. But this was fantastic. Mo Salah just casually crashing a wedding in his full Egyptian kit.
I saw that. It was brilliant. It is worth watching. Brilliant.
Yeah, get yourself onto Ben's Twitter page. This one again from Jimmy. He says, tweet of the week. I knew I'm not up to speed with British sayings, but nevertheless, I would recommend staying away from free drink. So Christmas at Tannadice. Get into the festive spirit with the return of our Christmas party nights across December. Priced at just £45 per person. A glass of jizz. 3-course Christmas dinner, entertainment and live DJ. Do not miss out. United in pursuit. I might give the glass of jizz a miss at Dundee United. Something that maybe Mark Ullman would have fancied back in the day. But hey! Allegedly, yeah. Andrew Nunn says, my child came off a sub, applauded all around as he came off like there was thousands of fans. He was going back on in a few minutes. It was goal on, goal off subs. That was a brilliant thread on Twitter. If you haven't read it, there was loads of little stories that were coming out of that. This one was great as well from Jimmy. He's been on a fire this week. When your mum isn't around to button up your jacket. Domino's apologises to anyone waiting on their pizza. We've just received an order from Holly and Phil this morning.
Well done.
And I'm sorry, Jimmy. It was quality rather than quantity that won it this week. And the winning tweet of the week was this: Jake Buckley. I'll always love Queen Lizzie for making Sunderland change their logo to black and white. Fantastic. Great stuff. Keep them coming. Send them into us. Quiet week from Zara this week. So she will be double whammy next week, I would imagine.
I think I've got to hold my hand up there because I forgot to forward them on.
All right. Well, keep them coming. Get them in next week. Tweet of the week. Okay, we're at clue 3 for a Q-Text quiz where you get 3 question and answer. You put them all together and we'll have the prize next week. 2nd of February, 1903 was the first one. Adrionians was your second clue. This week's clue, 133 Newcastle goals, 133 Newcastle goals. Okay, put them all together. One more next week, and it'll be the prize will be announced next week as well. Don't forget, you've got 40 minutes to bid on the Rob Lee signed T-shirt. It's on my Twitter at Steve Rafe. Get yourself on there and get bidding. I'm not sure what it was at. I'll have to check, but all proceeds go to the food bank, of course. Always well worth bidding on those, especially when they're signed by the players. Okay, going to have a quick ad break. I'm just going to go and check to make sure everything is working backstage with this. Well, I've had no more complaints, so it's still clearly running, but here's the ads. Big thank you to skipsandbins.com, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract, free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Darren Baldwin Funerals, independent funeral directors. You can find them at 304 Old Durham Road, Gateshead. Telephone 0191 478 273 or email Darren at darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk or go to the website darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. Thanks to Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD hemp and cannabinoid specialists. You can find them at thegohd.com. And thanks to 3 Property, who specialise in sourcing investment properties for their clients who are looking to invest in the Northeast. They offer a full in-house service from sourcing the deals to managing the properties for you. They've done over 100 plus deals in the past 12 months for clients all over the UK. Give the guys a follow on Instagram, matty.patter_northeastproperty and phil.reed_northeastproperty, or email phil@3property.co.uk if you're interested in getting a good property deal. Thanks also to Mr. Vicky's Sauces. They are handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at mrvickys.co.uk or give them a call on 01768 210 102. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the video technology side of things. And thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Walls and Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, NUFCmatters.com. If you want to subscribe to the channel, hit the NUFC Matters logo in the bottom right-hand corner and you can subscribe for free. Hit the thumb up underneath the video to like it. It does us a big favour. And click share to share to your social media, such as Facebook and Twitter. Maybe he's added to a Newcastle United group. You can also make a donation. Just hit the thanks button underneath if you're enjoying the content and you want to share something with me or the people on the channel. And you can also click join, which means that you commit to maybe a monthly membership, or you can become a cult member. How do you do that? Well, you go to the website, nufcmatters.com, and you search for membership. What do you get for your £25 one-off payment? You get a cup, a pen, a membership card, and a scarf, and entry into the monthly draw. We also have a smart code. There you go, the QR code there. If you put your smartphone over it, it'll take you straight to the website and you can get involved in a cult membership pack today. We also give you something for nothing. If you subscribe to the show, then email john@nufcmatters.com and get your free car window sticker now. We also support the food bank on here. NUFC fans foodbank.co.uk is the matchday bucket website. You just need to go there and you can make a virtual donation. Don't forget, during the season on match days, we're at the Dog and Parrot with Supermac, pre-match and post-match. And we're at Pumphrey's, John Anderson and John Gibson, pre-match only. Also got the takeover anniversary party coming up at the Irish Centre. Tickets are £2 on the door, and you can get your tickets for that from nufcmatters.com. And Supermac will be at the Terrace Club in Seaton Delaval, Friday the 11th of November. Tickets are a tenner, table is £650, and you can get those tickets from 0191 237 0133. Great stuff. All is working okay. Just need people to bid on the Rob Lee t-shirt. There isn't one bid. The Steve Wraith, the Steve Wraith shirts have actually sold. Well, we actually made money from them. We got rid of two. Not even one bid for the signed Rob Lee t-shirt. So get yourself in. You could get yourself a bargain. Stick it down as a fiver. Get your bid on there now on @Steve Wraith on Twitter. I'm sure somebody is going to be very, very happy tonight. Steve Middlemas, good evening. He says, just got the stream back. What do you think about the Premier League cartel wanting other clubs to be restricted to spending only 80% of their income? Just another thing, Mitch. Just another thing that they've decided to come up.
Protectionism, anti-competitive. It's probably a good job Keith isn't on, because we'd probably have a 25-minute ramble about the anti-competitive behaviour from the cartel, and quite rightly so. So, yeah, what can you say? All of the measures that they keep coming up with, that they dress up as being financially important for the game and sustainability, it's bullshit. It's about protecting the haves from the have-nots who could be haves like us. And that's what it's all about. And it's about nothing else. It's pure protectionism. And it's now, they're not really trying to dress it up as anything else anymore. It's almost like they've given up. They're just doing it in plain sight and sticking two fingers up to everybody while they do.
Yeah, Steve, it's just another thing, isn't it? Which, they just seem to be constantly inventing things to try and annoy Newcastle fans.
Yeah, isn't it good of Man City and Man United and Arsenal and Chelsea and Tottenham and Liverpool to say, oh, hey, lads, we're going to look after you. We're going to stop you from spending all your money. Don't spend all your money. We limit what you can spend. By the way, it's going to be percentage because we've got loads of money and we're going to limit you. because we've already restricted you on your commercial activity, you know. And no, you know, you poor little minnows, you don't want to be spending all your money. You know, we've got to hold you, we've got to rein you back in. It's for your own good. You know, it's a bit like I'm just reading an article here. This is what happened at the tennis this afternoon. It says a man ran onto the court at the O2 Arena and set fire to his arm to protest at the use of private jets in Britain. It then went on to say security personnel acted quickly to drag the man off the court before play resumed, following a quick check of the surface to make sure it hadn't been damaged. And I thought, this is what's going on? There's some crazy. That's nearly as crazy as what the Premier League top six are trying to do. You know, it's just as stupid. You know, it's like, oh yeah, we're there to protect you. It's absolutely mental. You know, the whole place has gone mad. I was panicking when I saw KK trending on Twitter, and I thought, what's Kevin done? And then I realised it was Kwasi Kwarteng, the Chancellor of the Exchequer. You know, this is how panicky you are getting when you see stuff coming up. But no, I mean, man, it's absolutely ridiculous to think that they can, as Mitch says, try and pull all of the wool over the other 14 clubs' eyes, and they're falling for it.
Understand it. I get it from their perspective, but actually, if you think about it from Newcastle United, I'm going to contradict what I said earlier about the sponsorship money. Let's put all the money in the bank then. Let's get Armco to sponsor the Cones. And if we can, you know, by all means, we'll spend 80%, but 80% of 200 billion, that'll win us the Premier League. So let's just do that. Let's play them at their own game.
And that's the kind of move that they'll try and do, Joe, because they don't want to do devious and underhand things like invent a company to sponsor Newcastle United. There's too many questions over certain things going on with how the money go around works at Man City at the minute. There's too many other things being investigated at Man City at the minute. They seem like they're on the precipice of a disaster and they're currently keeping it under wraps. But we will do it properly, and we'll take them on at their own game, and we'll play by the rules and still stick it to them. Yeah. It just might take a little bit longer than initially planned.
Yep. There was a car company sponsored Man United, shirt sponsor, American car company. They sold 28 cars in the UK during the period of that sponsorship. 28.
Yeah, because they don't have any dealerships. But no? Do you want to know? Do you want to guess how many cars were maybe sold here in the UAE on the back of that sponsorship?
I can imagine.
When it was also plastered all over one of the big banks' major credit cards over here. One of the banks I use here. Would you like you're a football fan, so would you like a Man United credit card? No, you can swipe it between your arse crack for me, mate. I don't want one of them. Thank you. And they couldn't understand why. But you're English, you like football, yeah, and I don't like them. You know, and so. This again comes back to this globalism that we're dealing with. That sponsorship was never about selling cars in the UK, ever, because you don't get many Chevys sold in the UK. We know which company it was, but the dealerships here are pretty strong, and I guarantee you, particularly that there's a big Indian cohort support Man United out here. How many of them bought a Chevrolet because it was on Ronaldo's chest, you know?
Yeah.
A fair few, I bet.
And that tells you why, at the end of the day, they'll want the TV rights wrapped up with each club, and that's why they'll want the games to be played at a time when you've got Prime TV in America, or Prime TV in the UAE, and Prime TV in Europe. That's what it's all about.
If you want a comparison, if you look at what the league has done with kickoff times, and they've had Barcelona, Real Madrid kick off perfectly for Doha.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that really is the way some of this is going to look, and comes back to where we started here. The minute that 3 p.m. kickoff becomes no longer sacrosanct, we're going to see all sorts of shenanigans going on, and it'll all be with broadcasting in mind.
Definitely. Okay, change of subject. Which one do I go for? We'll go with Jimmy's first. Off a normal topic, what do the lads think about Paqueta's bad start at West Ham? And the West Ham fans aren't happy with him. Did we get lucky, or does he need more time, Mitch?
Right. how many players can you think that played in a black and white shirt and they were just at the wrong club at the wrong time, and they went on and did something else somewhere else? And
John
the one
Dale
I
Thomason.
was, that's the one I always come back to, Steve. In pre-season, him and Shearer looked amazing together. Then Shearer got that injury, and suddenly he was up front on his own, doing a totally different job that he was never really brought in to do. Weight of expectation, screwed up an early chance against Sheffield Wednesday, and that was it. His season was shagged. Went on and did all sorts in other leagues, and we can name a number of players who just didn't fit, just didn't come. It was the wrong place at the wrong time. I think a problem with the modern game is now the kind of money that's being thrown around, there's an immediacy expected, not just from players, but from managers too. We've seen managers gone already this season. There's an immediacy demanded when it comes with big money transfers, in particular like his. I think their managers in bother. And again, we've talked about this before. How many other worldwide businesses would effectively give their managing director a couple $100 million to spend and then sack him 6 weeks later? And so I think that's what you're seeing is a reflection of that everybody wants it now. Some players, though, and again, that's another great one, Cabana just didn't fit. It was wrong place, wrong time, he never really gelled. And so you can think of many players that we've had through our books like that. For Paqueta's sake, just thinking of him as an individual, I hope it's just a case of bedding into the Premier League. He's come from France, and the pace, if you watch any Ligue 1 games, the pace is so different to what we do here in the Premier League. And I think Brazilians cope with it better because, God, have you watched any games from South America recently? It's 200 mile an hour and they get punted up the arse every 5 minutes and there's no yellow cards and all sorts of ridiculousness happens. So I think they can adapt better. But I think that's what it is for me. It's just that desire to have everything now. We've just spent all this money on him. He should be great. He should have scored 2 goals already. Has he settled? Again, I go back to that Marcelino story about the total lack of pastoral care that used to be at Newcastle United. When somebody just didn't settle, it wasn't about what was happening on the pitch. It was all about what was happening off the pitch. I think that's why this little dream of having Paqueta with Bruno suited Paqueta and Bruno very nicely, because they're mates, their families are friends, they've been together for all sorts. But we seem to not see something there that made us not sign him, even though we categorically know he spent 3 weeks, not just a little bit on the radar, firmly on the radar, could have been brought in at any time. And for one reason or another, decided not to. Now, whether that was to do with Wilson's injury, forcing a hand to go down to Isaac, or whether that was because somebody somewhere in the club just really didn't think he was going to fit for one reason or another. And if that's the case, fair play to the scouting team, fair play to Dan Ashworth, fair play to Eddie Howe for saying, there's something there that just isn't right. So maybe we have dodged a bullet, but I think it's really unfair on a player. He's hardly even got his feet wet, and I think this is genuinely a problem now, born out of the amount of money that's being pumped through the game.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it, Steve? A lot of people saying we got the better of the 2 deals. I mean, a lot of people saying we should be praising our scouting network because they took Bruno, because of course we were interested in Paqueta before we got Bruno.
Yeah, absolutely. What I would say about Paqueta, I was listening to some South American clients talking about Paqueta, and they were saying that the thing with Paqueta is he's one of those players who has to be on the ball. He needs to be on the ball. He can play left, he can play right, he can play up front, he can play slightly deeper, but you've got to play him. You've got to get the ball to his feet. You've got to allow him to play. Now, the way West Ham is set up, they've basically just taken this £55 million player and dropped him in, but they're still playing Bowen and they're still playing Souček, who, if you listen to West Ham fans, has been absolutely atrocious since January. Rice isn't pulling up any trees. You've got Fornells. You've got Antonio playing up front when they've just spent a fortune on a young Italian striker, 30-odd million quid. Moyes is all over the place. Moyes doesn't know what to do. He's been handed these players and he doesn't know. He knows the formation he wants. He's playing one up front. He's playing 5 in midfield. 2 of them are holding. And then he has wide men. And he's got a centre forward who holds the ball up constantly, but doesn't score goals, doesn't really lay the ball off that well, and relies on strength. And he's been sussed out and is out of form. And then they're saying, basically, drop Paqueta in and tell him to run around. It's not Paqueta's game. So I feel as though Paqueta has probably gone to the wrong club at the wrong time. You know, and whether we dodged a bullet or whether we just looked and said, you know what, the way that we're setting up, we couldn't really find a space for him because he wants to play ASM on one side and he wants to play Isaac possibly on the other side when Wilson's fit. But then he's got Miggy playing there at the moment on that right side and cutting in, which I feel as though is wasted because he doesn't that split second in the game, as I mentioned on Wednesday night, just means that the whole emphasis and the whole attack and prowess that you have, it's snapped up by very, very good defenders, so that the chance is gone. And that's all it is in the Premier League. It's a split second, the chance, then it's away. So I feel as though Paqueta's probably getting a short shift at West Ham. And I think we're looking possibly through rose-tinted specs and going, oh, that was a good deal. That was a good deal. Let's see how it matures and how it plays on. I think you'll probably see, and probably people's expectations of Paqueta will rise once it comes to December and we're playing in the World Cup in Qatar and we see what he actually does with the Brazilians and we see what he can do when he's got flamboyant players around him, when he's got players who will play with him, and when he's getting the opportunity to be on the ball and he's playing those nice little 1-2s with the likes of a Guimaraes or a Neymar up front. You know, this is what we've got. He's a 33, 34 cap Brazilian, you know, superstar in my eyes. And this is, no, we haven't dodged a bullet. What we've lost out is on a very good player who perhaps, as Mitch says, just didn't fit the bill at that particular time. Circumstances changed. And let's not forget, we've got an Elliot Anderson who can play a very similar role once he gets the chance. And I think they're bedding Elliot in. And by the end of the season, we'll suddenly see that Elliot becomes possibly a starter for Newcastle United and a regular starter at that. So if we've got a player like Elliot, you know, let's concentrate on relying on him and giving him the opportunity, because let's face it, we've been criticised and we've all criticised the club in the past for not bringing young players through. Now we've got a young player who's very, very talented. Let's give him the opportunity, let him shine and get him off the leash.
Joe, we had a Willy Wonky scenario with Paqueta all summer, didn't we? And, you know, he didn't. Off he went to West Ham. And somebody just mentioned in the chat that, you know, West Ham's got bigger problems given Noble a job at the club as director of football. But yeah, look, I mean, I just didn't think it was ever going to happen. I just thought it was Bruno or Paqueta. And I do feel like we got the right one.
We got caught up in it, didn't we? He came to Newcastle with his partner, and you know he had a photo playing football with Bruno, and that was it. He was signing for Newcastle. Is he a good footballer? Undoubtedly, absolutely. You don't play 34 games and whatever he's going to go on and achieve in that Brazilian midfield if you bang average. Is he better than Jacob Murphy, Ryan Fraser, John Joe Shelby, Sean Longstaff? Yes. However, you know, we have this conversation, don't we, about Isaac? We have it about Miggy Almiron. We have it about Sam Maximin. Paqueta would have been another one of them players for me where we'd have all been sat there now going, where should we play him? You know, what do we do with him? So actually, yes, he's a better footballer. But in terms of the system that Eddie Howe is insistent on playing, we talk about that a lot. That doesn't look like changing anytime soon. What do you do with Paqueta? And as Steve said, David Moyes is finding that problem straight away. And interestingly, the best place for Mark Noble at the minute is probably in the centre of the park alongside Declan Rice, to be fair. So for me, did we dodge a bullet? I'm not sure. He'd have certainly made the team better. He'd have certainly made the squad better. But what do we do with him? Where do we play him? And is it another headache that we could just do without in the centre of that park? So Time will tell. Good for him. He's a good player. He'll come good wherever he goes.
Can I jump in on that Mark Noble thing?
Yeah,
I don't think it's a bad move for West Ham. I think it's something that's fascinating because it depends on what you want your director of football to do. No, I don't know Mark Noble very well, and I don't know what kind of bloke he is. Whenever he's done interviews, he comes across as a sensible lad, an intelligent guy, and level-headed. He knows West Ham inside. He's been knows West Ham inside out. He's been at that club since I think he was 9 or something like that.
Yeah,
since he was blowing bubbles.
Not only does he support the club and know the club, he's done the journey, the whole journey, from 9-year-old to club captain. He knows that journey inside out at West Ham. Where did it go right? Where did it go wrong? Where did we lose talent? Why did we lose talent? Did we lose them to other London clubs? Did we lose them because we couldn't support them? We couldn't develop them? Did we lose them because, X, Y, Z, because there wasn't pastoral care for them to let them develop into what they could be? So in a world of retired resources, he could actually be a unicorn for them. It really does depend on what they want him to do. Because you can guarantee if we had somebody like that who'd been through the entire system at Newcastle, and we were talking about bringing him into the club in a role, it depends on what you're wanting him to do and what you want him to get involved with. And I suspect what they want him to do is to be more a director of football that establishes the DNA of the club and can work at all levels about helping players to bed into that DNA of the club. And who better to know the DNA of the club than somebody who's been brought up with it in his veins?
Yeah, and remember what they've done is they've called him a sporting director. And we've talked about the difference between a director of football and
do you remember that chat we made about the difference between those two things? Oh my God.
Exactly. And what I would say about Mark Noble as well is he's had the intelligence to go away and study at the Harvard Business School and then come back with his diploma in business. So he's got the foundations, the football foundations there, and now he's gone out and he's learned a little bit about the business side of the game, and he's been able to bring that. He'll work alongside Karen Brady, and he'll help develop the club. And you're right, the DNA of that football club is so important in a sporting director role. You've got someone who's going to look and the style of football the club wants to play, understanding how that blends all the way through, as they say, from the young kids all the way through the first team. And so that you end up with the juniors playing in exactly the same formations in the same way, with the same style of football. Yeah, you're signing players, and you've got midfielders. Do you remember when years ago under your dealers where we had an abundance of midfield players who all looked the same, all played the same? We had a duplication of effort. We had Gaza and we had Ian Bogie, and you couldn't decide which one of them was going to play. They played a very, very similar style of football. You look at the Appleby twins when they were there, the Appleby brothers rather, and you saw that the way they played. You had Robbie Elliott, and you had another fullback who played similar, and it was duplication rules to find out who was going to be the best, which one you could let go, and which one. But they were all playing under our deals. The club was playing. Yes, we weren't winning, but at least all the way down, they were playing the same style. It was that win or bust style of football. But everybody knew what was going on. I mean, I'm not saying that that Ozzy was ahead of his time. I'm just saying that was the way it went. And we actually complained at one point. I remember a lot of fans complaining, saying we've got similar players here. We've got no variation. We've got it's really, really odd. It was a conversation I remember having with my mates way back in that particular era, But I think it's a great deal. I think it's quite foresightful by West Ham to look and go and we'll create this role that they will come into and shape the way the football club's going. And listen to David Moyes, he seems delighted to have somebody there, because I think probably with David Moyes, he probably felt as though maybe the lad might have had another season playing. So now he's got him in a different dimension, doing something different at the football club. And I think it's great as well, because you've got footballers who want to stay in the game, but not necessarily in a coaching role, not necessarily want to be the manager. There can only be one manager. There can only be one coach. You know what I mean? So he's looked to stay in the game, stay at his club, but doing something that nobody else has ever done. I think probably the only person like that was probably the lad at Man United who wanted to get involved in the business side of the game, you know. So I think it's great. I think it's brilliant. I think it's a good move.
I think it's good for me as well, because we were talking about the potential for the soul getting ripped out of our game. That's where we started this conversation. And actually, you know, you talk about the West Ham way, the School of Science, you know, there's certain clubs that are steeped in the history of our game. And you know what? If it meant bringing some random in from somewhere with all these wacky, crazy ideas, you know, we'd have been slagging this decision off. So I think for me, the very fact that, you know, clubs like West Ham are willing to stand behind one of their own, and if it is about kind of making sure that the West Ham way remains, you know, Mr. Brooken, for example, you know, was doing it for years and years. There's your figurehead. This is the guy, you know, he knows West Ham inside out, upside down and back to front. You know, so I think it's a great move.
We're talking about ambassadors, don't we? We talk about football ambassadors. Bringing Keegan back as an ambassador, bringing Shearer back as an ambassador. This is a player coming back where he's going to have actually some teeth. You know, he's going to actually be able to put something back in.
And something you also see in American sports.
Well,
Dan Marino at the Dolphins, John Elway at the Broncos, making that move to a directorial role. And again, because they are seen as established parts of the whole DNA and identity of that club over time.
Yeah, okay, great stuff. Good questions coming in tonight. Congratulations to Steve Bennett. You are the winner of the Rob.
Hey, well done, Steve.
£60 going to the food bank. Contact Steve Hasty and John, and they will sort that out with you. So thanks very much. Next T-shirt that we will be putting up tonight is a signed Peter Beardsley T-shirt in the same mold. So you've got a week to bid on the Beardsley T-shirt. I'll pin that at the top of my Twitter in the next 5 minutes, and you can start bidding for that one. And good luck. I will announce the winner on the Amigos next Friday night. Don't forget as well, Peter Beardsley Soccer School Monday night training, 26th of October, 6 till 7. Girls and boys aged 8 to 16. Fox Hunters Pavilion, North Shields, NE29 9QB. Book at Peter Beardsley Soccer School. .com. Great stuff. It seems to be going from strength to strength, that. And also the October half-term soccer school is the 24th to the 28th of October, 10 till 3, same place. Again, for any information or to book, you can get yourself to peterbeardsleysoccerschool.com online. And the Legends game is quickly approaching at the same venue. A little bit more information coming about this next week. John is organising that from QTech. Newcastle Legends versus Manchester United Legends on the 14th of October. More information, as I say, coming on that next week. Thanks to John from QTech for everything he's doing. Doing a lot of work behind the scenes, and it is great. Anyway, time for Elliot's section. Thanks for calling the S&M support line. Unfortunately, all of our operators are tied up at the moment.
They don't get any better at all, do they?
No, they don't, but it makes me laugh. It gives us all a giggle, which is what we need going into the weekend. Thanks, Elliot. Keep up the good work. This is an interesting one, lads. The BT man who is in our chat on a regular basis these days, the club in Newcastle United City Council wants James as part of your host stadium for Euro 2028. Hosting it will put Newcastle on the map, bring significant social and economic benefits to the city. It would be great, wouldn't it? We have the rugby here, Mitch. We have the odd gig now and then. We know Sam Fenders, but back-to-back sellout things. It's nice for the ground to be used for another thing, and it's nice to see us, putting our head above the parapet and chucking my hat in the ring for that.
And if you look at the feedback from Magic Weekend, those rugby league guys love coming to Newcastle, and it's not just because of the stadium. It's not just because of the pitch and the setup. It's because of where it is, heart of the city. It's because of the way we, as Geordies, welcome everyone. Come and have a good time. Come party in our city. Come party in the city centre. Come play a sport in the city centre. There's not many people can say that, and we can. If you go back to Euro 96 and the amazing boost to Newcastle's economy at the time, being a host city then was, and how the city evolved almost overnight. Licensing hours changed and never really went back. The whole concept of the Newcastle becoming on the map in Europe as a party city came out of that a little bit too. And so being a host nation again, but with the next level of being associated with top flight football, world ownership, global power, won't just benefit Newcastle United. Of course, the city benefits from this in multiple ways, and the wider region benefits from it in multiple ways. It'll not just be increased traffic at Newcastle Airport, it'll be increased traffic at Teesside Airport as well. It'll be, the effects of having a host city, I guess potentially, depending on how they want to divide it up, you could have two host cities in the region, because I know the Mackems are in with it, but it seems to be it's going to be an us or them thing. And, well, you fly from Newcastle to get to Spain, so we know who's going to get it.
What's your thoughts on that, Steve?
It's interesting what you say. Going back to Euro 96, what people don't realise is that when Newcastle was announced for Euro 96, there was 2 years of work done within the city to get to that for those 3 games. A friend of mine was seconded from the post office to work on the team, and it was 2 years in the development, 2 years in work behind the scenes. The number of people that were involved, so it brings an awful lot. I mean, there's a lot of hard work, but there's an awful lot of reward. You just remember like the Lindisfarne gigs in the marquees and stuff like that. There's a lot of work organised. What I would say, however, and we might be thinking we can hang our hat because we've got a 52,000-seater stadium, but as I mentioned earlier, because they've said that it's not going to be what was originally thought, which was 32 countries, that means the number of host cities is going to be reduced, or number of host grounds is going to be reduced to 10. 5 of them have already been allocated because it's going to be Hampden Park, it's going to be Cardiff, it's going to be Wembley, it's going to be Croke Park and Croke Park, and it's going to be Aviva Stadium. So there's 5 already. So we're now in competition with Man City, Man United, Tottenham Stadium, the new stadium at Everton, the redevelopment that's going to take place at Villa Park. There's 5 straight away that are going to have bigger attendance potential than ours. And we're sitting there. We're now, I think, over the 8th and 9th biggest ground in the country in England. So we're going to have that. That's going to be difficult. You mentioned there Sunderland. So what can Sunderland offer? They can offer 48,000. It's only 4,000 less than us. So it's going to be quite a raffle. It's going to be quite a scramble. A lot of it's going to come down to what the city can offer. And when I say the city, I mean the city council, because UEFA who make the ultimate decision, and there's got to be all sorts thrown at them to allow you to, for you to win the duel. So it's not going to be a given. It's going to be Newcastle. We might think geographically that we stand an advantage, but you know what? It's certainly not going to be. It's not going to be as easy as we thought. When there was going to be, I think, 14. It's going to be 14 host cities, and now it's down to 10.
Do you think the biggest difference, though, is we've now got owners who would be prepared to properly engage with the city council and come up with a cohesive plan to win that bid, whereas under our previous owner.
Well, Amanda was spotted there this week, and I got a phone call of somebody saying, any idea why Amanda Staveley would be up there? It could have something to do with it,
Yeah, I mean, it's more to do with how the city council interact with the football club than the football, because it doesn't do anything for the football club other than it's their ground, but they're actually giving it away, and it costs an awful lot of money to do all the changes that are necessary. So it's more the relationship that the council has saying to the football club, we want to bid and we want to use your football ground.
Didn't we have to change the dressing rooms the last time?
Yeah.
In '96, the club ended up spending a hell of a lot of money on the dressing rooms.
Yeah, if you remember as well, it was '96. That's the reason why we've got such a big press box, because we had to put in the much bigger press box as well. So all of these things, you had to have bigger changing rooms because you had a bigger squad than we had in the Premier League at that particular time. I think we only had probably, was it still 2 subs? You need it, and of course the changing room changed; it became bigger. I was reading one of the clubs the other day that now that we've got like 23 players that are named, like for example the England squad at the moment, some grounds don't have changing rooms big enough for all the additional subs that you're allowed to name on a match day. So there's been development work being done there as well, And of course, you also remember that Newcastle had smaller changing rooms for the away team than they did for the home team, which caused all sorts of consternation. So there's an awful lot of stuff goes on, but it's not going to be a given. It's going to be Newcastle United, or it's going to be played in the northeast even, because we know how the politics plays out with UEFA and with the Premier League and such like. And you know what? I can honestly say that I could see the situation where Newcastle wouldn't get it purely out of spite, purely out of other clubs doing you in. And that's when, you look at it, Liverpool, Everton, Tottenham, Arsenal, Villa, there's 5 straight off the belt that, like I say, that'll be bigger than ours in Europe. So let's see where it takes her. But interesting times.
It is, Joe. It's just nice to be in the mix, isn't it? I guess, for those things. And the nice games, the different games to go to.
Yeah, absolutely. Great for the city, great for the fans who get to see, players from all over the continent. Fantastic. The interesting point in all of that is, and I know, we're heading rapidly towards 2023 now, but where will we be? Are we talking about the same Newcastle United in 2028? Are we winning the European Super League, beating Tottenham on goal difference, by then? Have we got plans for our own 80,000 seater stadium? Who knows? So, yeah, the current state of Newcastle United, yeah, I can see why potentially there'll be other grounds, and the English football have got other flagship kind of arenas to show off, if you like. I mean, particularly Tottenham. Tottenham's fantastic, no matter what you think. Hate them as a football club. I've got to keep saying that, but what a stadium. So I think for me, does it highlight something that you guys have been talking about for a long time now, in terms of the future of football in the Northeast? In terms of the future of Newcastle United, I'm just going to say it. Do we need a new ground?
Oh, well, hold that thought. Hold that thought. We'll tackle that. I want to get through one of our favourite slots. No Keith Patterson tonight, you will have noticed. He's travelling back from an engagement today, probably going to get fitted for some more luminous clothes and weird things that he likes to wear. But that doesn't mean that we do away with Toon Lookalike. A slow week on Toon Lookalike, but it doesn't mean that Steve Hasty comes away unscathed. And Albert was in full flow this week with his Steve Hasty machine, as was Tom Dixon, who was messing around with Reface app again for no particular reason other than to take the mick out of Steve. Albert says, Steve, I told you not to trust Steve Hasty with the shave. That just looks psychotic, that one. And then in this one, Steve, there's your Halloween costume sorted, Steve.
Yeah, I borrowed off Keith.
Borrowed off. It feels like Jurassic Park chatting with the Amigos on Friday.
It does, you're right, Albert.
Albert again. And Hasty's not for turning. A little tip that Margaret Thatcher or to Liz Truss, I'm not sure which. And then following on with this one, windy day at the food bank on Saturday for Steve. And then some. Jacob, when did Steve Hasty dye his hair?
You know what? Nobody's even noticed I've just had my hair cut either. I can't believe it.
Due to unexpected injury, Hasty drafted into Strictly after his wonderful audition. You need to watch the video to appreciate that one.
Those earrings.
Sam Chipperfield says, great to see Steve Hasty showing some imagination with his hair. And this one from Rita Oxley, Steve Hasty's ancestor. Thanks, Rita. And Yorkie says, Steve Wraith, I was in the bedside inn last week watching a band, and imagine my surprise seeing the two Steves. I didn't expect you to view this far north. Also, see Snapchat has a Steve Hasty filter. So just zooming in. There's Steve.
Yeah.
I can't find the picture of me, but it did look like me.
Conveniently.
Exactly.
And this is the Steve Hasty filter on Snapchat. Thanks for that, mate. Stu Penman from Sooty says, can you show us how you do this again? On Jodie's here, Jodie's there. I'm sure he will on Sunday night on the professionals. The hills are alive with the sound of Penman, says Albert. So not even Stu gets a break from Albert. Now some lookalikes. Phil Scolari and the Southern Comfort guy.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah.
Very good. And this one from Tom, Ralph Hasenhutl and Bradley Cooper.
Yeah, I can see that.
Similar smiles. Similar smiles. Pep Guardiola and Stanley Tucci.
I've thought that for a while when I've seen Stanley on TV, in films. I thought that for a while. Good one.
And a double F from Rita. Erling Haaland and Princess Fiona. And Arteta and Ronaldo, which we've had before, I think. It was a pretty scant week for lookalikes, but thanks to John from QTech. Thanks, John.
Give over. He's
Thanks,
been
mate.
drinking. Give over.
Yes, John, rightly so the winner of two lookalikes this week. Get them in. Get them in. Keep them.
You queue for that, ad, Steve.
I did queue, yeah.
I noticed you found that one. You found that photo, all right.
Aye, that one turned up, didn't it? Aye.
Yeah.
That's two lookalikey for this. All right, because there's no game, let's finish off with that one that Joe talked about. And it's a double-barreled one, Mitch. A new ground, Joe mentioned there. Do we need a bigger ground? Do we need a new ground? Is that something you would be happy with? And Ian Edgar put this up earlier. As far as renaming, I didn't want to rename anything under the previous ownership. But now, anything they want to rename, they can. We know it'll benefit the club, so bring it on. So, double-barreled. New ground, would it be something that you would be happy with or not? And failing that, would you be happy to rename the ground now?
Well, look, as well, this is something me and Steve in particular have talked about for years and years. Being in, having talked to people looking to buy the club in the past and seeing what their mindset was about the ground, the difficulties with the fact that they don't own the land, it's on the lease. Because historic problems we're dealing with the council, although I don't think that's the problem, that would be the case now. In terms of renaming, that was always the problem with the Sports Direct Arena. It wasn't what was done, it was the way it was done. Crowbarring the bloody name off the side of the ground at 6 a.m. without even telling the press officer it was happening was not the way to announce it. On an international weekend, so you hope it all calms down by the time of the next home game. Oh, by the way, we'll sack your manager as well. That was the way it was done. It was always about engagement with the fans and getting the fans to understand about what potential income streams are exist in football. That was one of the things that Lambias and Ashley had right in some respects, was getting naming rights is a way to have an income stream that generates money for the club. And so I think as a fan base, because we've got this renewed optimism and renewed faith in the ownership that we've got people who give a monkeys, that I think we all know and are aware of the reality of the situation that we have now, particularly with FFP, about making the money the best ways we can. And I think we all have confidence that a renaming would be done with sensitivity and respect to St James's Park. And that's all we wanted. It wasn't about changing the name. It was about respecting the history of the club. and doing it in a sensitive way, not like a bull in a china shop. And when it comes to new grounds, I've long been of the opinion anybody long term looking to do something big with Newcastle United, when it gets to the point where we need big numbers in the ground, for all I've recently looked at ways of expanding things at St James's Park, and I would love it to stay in and around St James's Park. And I still say John Hall's original idea of looking to do something in conjunction with Leazes Park just a little bit further up the road would be the way to go. But nearly everybody, me and Steve Acey have talked to, involved in bids for the club over the last God knows how many years, they all see a new ground as part of the mix somewhere down the line, because the expansion difficulties at St James's Park, which definitely are not insurmountable, but there's also logistical things about what do we do while if we're redeveloping St James's, where do we play, where can we play, can we redevelop in stages, but with a reduced capacity, and then how do we handle that sensitively for fans who potentially might lose their season tickets for a couple of years. There's loads of complications, and the easiest way to do it is build a brand new one, and then decide what to do with St James's Park after that. And I'm genuinely open to any ideas, because your point, Joe, is quite right. Is the Newcastle United of 2028 going to be the same beast that it is now? And I think hopefully we all hope that actually it's not. That we're going to be, like you say, and if this happens, I'm going to be getting the bloody lottery numbers off you, winning the Super League by goal difference from Tottenham, you know. But certainly we have the potential. We've seen it with the clamour for tickets to be filling 80,000, not every week, but a lot of the weeks. And if we're in bigger competitions on a regular basis, that's the potential we have, particularly as we grow in the global game. And you talk about people wanting to come in from Saudi, people want to come in from the Gulf, people want to come in from around the world to support Newcastle United. And there's a fan base, we'll have to get used to that as well. And that'll blow some people's minds. Well, I remember all the arguments about Johnny Come-Latelys when Keegan was in charge. And everybody had to cool their jets to get used to that. And this is on a bigger scale. But yet, my opinion has long been that we need to be looking at something brand new and designed with the modern concepts of a 24/7, 365 facility that is used for more than just football, has associated food, beverage, and concept malls, and even potentially housing attached to the stadium. So that ground is generating money for the club 24/7, 365. And if you go to the States and look at the Dallas Cowboys new stadium, if you look at some of the developments made by a company called Matthews Southwest, who I had a chat with one of the regional CEOs of actually this week. If you look at the concepts that they're doing now, is all about making that ground do more than just gather dust from Sunday to Friday and come alive on a Saturday. That's something that is part of not just establishing the legacy of the club in the city, but also a money spinner all the time, all year round. And the only way we can do that is with a new group.
Interesting, Stephen. The feedback in the chat tonight is all rather positive towards having a new ground. Of course, John putting in that idea again about the mirror image idea, which uses the footprint of the Leazes End turned around, solves all the problems and easy. It could build 80 to 90k and don't need to play elsewhere while built. So lots of positivity, and it's the new owner effect, really. Faith in the owner and not feeling taken for granted equals, yeah, let's do it. And those people, of course, who are on the outside at the minute looking in, will, of course, would be desperate for something to happen so that they can get in and watch the team play. Yeah.
John's idea was the best idea I saw. It was the one that I thought worked, fitted the model that we currently have, which is you could still carry on, you could still play inside St James's, still 52,000 going to watch the game while a new ground's developed. And as you say, stuck on the back of the Leazes End, up into the Leazes Park, once that new ground is there, the club, as St James's Park, as we know it, is then demolished, and Leazes Park, a lovely green area with various amenities, then becomes available for the city. A park that would actually be in the city centre, that would be suitable to be used with all the safety and security that goes with it. Not the state of a park at the moment, which is just full of junkies and such like, and has all sorts of issues. I know it's historic and such like, but for me, that was the plan that fitted and knitted so nicely. Moving up into Leazes Park, backing onto the current, and then all of a sudden, where you've got the stand in the Leazes end, that could then become a hotel or a conference centre or whatever, stuck on the back of it, and all sorts of hospitality amenities and everything. I think that John was absolutely spot on. It's going to happen. Something's going to happen. What we've heard from the owners, the current owners, is that they like the platform, they like the footprint, they see the advantage of being in the city centre, the uniqueness. They've already said that. And it's how that then fits into how they can make the ground bigger. If the ground can only go to 60,000, and it means we'll build on the Gallagher end, and that's their foresight and what they're looking at, or whether they have some clever long-term plan that allows them to also extend the east stand and encompass and wrap that around in such a way that it fits with the planning objections that have been there in the past. We talked with that company that Mitch is talking about, Matthews. We met Jay and we met the guys, and we actually brought them to Newcastle. We took them to Newcastle City Council. We took them to Gateshead City Council, introduced them to Sir John Hall. I remember sitting in a meeting with them at in the Sandman, and lots and lots, and then they planned, as Mitch is going to say, didn't they plan various things with Durham County Council for the Emirates?
For the Riverside. I've still got the blueprint idea for what they wanted to do at the Riverside with the Jumeirah Hotel and the conference centre and all sorts. What
blew that was the way that the Durham County Durham Cricket Club was ECB. By the ECB and relegated them and took everything away from them and barely recovered. But no, for me, the ground does need updated. It does need that redevelopment. This is the difficulty that Miedad, Amanda, PIF, and the Rubens are going to have. How they fit it in, what they can offer. I think what their advantage is that, as you've seen, and like you see on the chat, the comments coming through, people are now going, you know what? If it meant a new stadium, it's a new stadium. But I think the vast majority of them are also saying, but it's got to be in the city centre, finding somewhere. And I know people talk about the arena, but that area, it's been earmarked for other things, and from what I can gather, it's contaminated land anyway from the foundry that was further down. It's quite a spread, but whether people would be happy travelling that extra 10-minute walk from the city centre, I'm not too sure. I hear people complain about the walk to the arena for to just go and see bands. Quite honestly, I'm not too sure. But it's you're right. It fits in with what Joe said. Where will the club be in 2028? Where will we be in 5 years' time? Where will the city be? What do we want? Where's football leading to? Bring it on. Bring on the change. This is why Miedad and Amanda get paid the money that they do. This is why the Rubens want to get involved with the city. And this is why PF wanted Newcastle United as a football club. It all fits in. They'll make it work. They'll make whatever needs to happen. And we're just on that journey, aren't we?
Town Moor being suggested. Joe, you've certainly got people thinking. Bill Gateshead Stadium up as a community resource. We go there in St James's Park, rebuild to meet needs. I mean, lots of suggestions. Some of them have seen them before. We've been through this before, back in the 90s, of course, under Sir John Hall. But new stadium, Joe, is that what you're fancying?
Why don't we just knock Eldon Square down and put it on there? Because then we don't have to stand outside the roofs for hours at Christmas. Do I want a new stadium? No. Are we emotionally attached to St James's Park? Absolutely. However, we're talking about moving a football club from what we are now to what was a relatively well-established Premier League team into a global kind of Champions League winning marauding colossus. Can we do that with 52,000 fans? We could. But why should we when we can do it with 80 or 90,000 fans? And like the guys have said, Steve, there's more to having a new stadium than football. Football's part of it. Football's something that happens on a Wednesday night and a Saturday afternoon. What happens with the rest of the week?
Joe, I'll tell you what somebody involved in development of football grounds said to me probably about 5 years ago, that all deals for grounds and for football clubs these days are a real estate deal with a football problem.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. Can we compete? Like I say, if we've got an infinite pot of cash from PIF, but I think you're right, Steve. I don't think Jamie Rubin and his family get involved if they don't have a say in this stuff. I don't think PIF as marvellous as we think St James's Park is, it's not as marvellous as the Emirates. It's not as marvellous as the Etihad, Wembley, Tottenham, etc. I think it's coming. But what's really, really interesting, with the majority of the debate tonight, whether we were talking about a cartel, whether we were talking about these bastards who were going to run away with our game, it doesn't matter what we talk about, whether we talk about renaming our stadium. What's really interesting, all of a sudden now, if Amanda and Miadad say we should do it, we're behind it all of a sudden. It's a great idea. So we need to be careful what we wish for, because what if it's not just about the top 4, 5, 6 wanting to run away with and chase the money? What if Newcastle United want to as well? And I know that's a totally different show and an hour's worth of debate on that one, but maybe we want a piece of this massive pie as well, and we've got to acknowledge that. Maybe it will be Aramco at St James's Park, but it's interesting, Mike Ashley, we had Sports Direct at St James's Park and we wanted to burn the place down. Aramco at St James's Park, we want to be part of it. So we have to really think as a fan base, kind of, what do we want this to look like? And ultimately, how far are you willing to sell your soul, essentially, to be the best?
But isn't that just a reflection of an owner who takes care in the stewardship of the club?
Yeah.
Versus an owner who really just doesn't give a shit.
Mitch, you were dead right. Everything in life, it's not about what you do; it's about how you do it. That's a life lesson. So I agree. Yeah, I don't think me and Dad will be there with his drill, kind of taking the advertising boards down. I'm guessing.
I've got an image now. It's fantastic.
Or do we turn around and say, do you know what? Sports Direct didn't put a penny into the renaming of that stand, but if Aramco was going to give us, and I don't know what the going rate is, 20 million a season for it, we'll all be over the moon because we'll get a new centre forward.
Yeah, that'll be out with his brasso polishing it, won't he? But I would say a good point somebody mentioned safe standing there and thinking that could increase capacity. It can't. That's the problem. Safe standing, there's one standing person for where one seat out, you stick one person in standing. The scheme that we've discussed before, the scheme that the German model was, you could get 3 to 1. There was, for every seat you took out, 3 people could stand, but that's not the scheme that the government's going to allow. And I've had this conversation with John Darch back when we did the survey and the expo that we put on, Steve. Remember? In the 9 Bar on Stowell Street. That must have been 2014. That's how long that we've had to wait. We're talking about fan-led review. It's taken from 2014 with John and his little testing beds to show us what safe standing would look like and get us all behind it, and until 2022, and still hearing nothing from Newcastle about safe standing. And that's the next big thing that's going to come, because then we're going to have, there's two things that are going to start rotting the boat. One is there's still fans think that the away fans should be further down and lower, and that means disrupting and sending somebody upstairs when they've had a seat for 15, 20 years down below, or even longer. And there's also, where do we put safe standing if and when we do introduce it, and who gets knocked back, and how do you start shuffling that round? Because that's going to upset the apple cart. So there's a lot at play there. So, these are headaches that, as we've said time and time again, that I wouldn't like to have. But it's the headaches that the new owners, the owners of the football club, it's a year next week since they took over, are gonna have to take on board. Good luck to them.
Yeah, don't forget, you can get along 7th of October. Come along and have a pint with the guys, just to celebrate the fact that we've been taking over for a year now. Exciting times. John says, designing the new NUFC Matters Arena on the back of a beer mat. Happy to pass it on for a couple of pints. Time to move on and get left behind. And if the club is to move forward, then tough. The fans will have to move with it, says Barry. Steve Bennett says, great. Second part of the show, guys. Thank you as always. Well worth listening to and a great way to slide into the weekend. But it wouldn't be complete without this little bugger. I'm very sad to say it wasn't me targeted this week.
Yes, absolutely agree with that statement.
Yes, Mitch.
And he's 7 followers.
He's very good, isn't he? Yeah, but brilliant. Nice to see it's not just me that gets a bit of stick every now and then. Mitch's turn this week. That is Troll of the Week. There you go. Makes Julie's weekend that, it really does. Rachel found that quite amusing as well. Thank you for finding part 2. We got there in the end. Technical difficulties. God knows what happened. An outage of some kind of description. But we've gone over by about 10 minutes as well. So you've had a little bit extra as well. But pass on. Please share part 1 and part 2. Let people know what happened. Just so people get the full Amigos experience. Mitch will be back on Sunday. And I think we said... Did we say 4:30 or 5:30, Mitch? I think we did, didn't it? Me, you, and Stu.
Just tell us on Sunday morning. I'll be sorted, Bruce, mate.
4:30, 5:30 on Sunday.
UAE time, was it?
Yeah, it was just because Stu's got to work now. I'm back with George 11 o'clock in the morning, and then me and Joe will be back 7 o'clock on Monday night. Have a great weekend, guys. Whatever you're doing, try not to fall asleep during the England game. Steve, Joe, Mitch, thanks a lot, lads. Have a good weekend.
Cheers, everyone.
Hey, guys.